Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a gift for you. I have a Hall of Fame speaker, Mr. Joel Weldon, on the show today. And I cannot wait. We have a lot of mutual friends, and Dr. Benjamin Hardy actually recommended him. So this should be exciting. So do me a favor before we get this thing going. I want you to stop everything and share this out. Share it out, whether you have a million friends or you have two friends. Share it out so they can all get on here and learn from this man and absorb his wisdom. So stay with us. I will have Joel Weldon on here in just a second. All right, we're back. Let me bring Mr. Joel Weldon on to the stage. Joel, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ken.
I'm glad that you're here.
Well, a pleasure to be here and glad you're listening wherever you are.
Yeah, well, I have had this show now for 5 years or so, and I started this probably for selfish reasons. It was, to interview people to learn how to get unstuck in life. And it worked for me. And I've seen it work for a lot of other people. I truly believe that by sharing our stories of the ups and the downs and how we broke through, I truly believe that that's healing for other people. So thank you for being on today. And Joel, I'd like to start with you telling everybody where it all began for you. Where were you born and raised?
Well, first of all, you're here because you're looking through a breakthrough. You're looking for something to help you break through a challenge or a difficulty. Maybe you're super successful already, but you want even more success, more good things happening in your life. Or maybe you're just beginning your journey in life. Well, obviously, looking at me, you can tell I've been on this journey a long time. And as I look back on this, I know one thing about you as you're listening. You don't care anything about me. You only care, do I know something that can help you in your journey? My journey's been made and it doesn't involve you, but you are somewhere in that journey, either the beginning or near the end of it. So hopefully what you're going to hear in this breakthrough session with Ken and I are some ideas that will help you break through those challenges, take you to a higher level. And the theme of what we're going to talk about is an old expression that you've heard before. And that expression is this: your life is your choice. That's it. If I was to sum up 82 years of living, and I'll be 83 in October, that would be it. That our life is our choice. And we make choices throughout our life that determine what we have. So, based on where you are right now, is the summation of the choices you've made so far in your life. Well, Ken asked me, where was I born? New York in 1941, just as World War II was starting. And it's been an amazing journey since that time.
Hey Joel, your audio skipped there. I think we're having an internet hiccup here on your end.
All right.
Um yeah, there's an issue with your audio's not coming through.
Is it not coming through now?
It is now. It is now.
All right. Well, nothing is moving.
Fluctuating.
So it could be our Zoom connection, or not Zoom because we're on um, StreamYard, right?
Okay. Yeah, we're on StreamYard. There's Jenny.
She says
She
I
said
can hear it.
she hears it. Okay. So
Jenny is
so
my partner and my daughter, and also a professional speaker. So thank
and
you.
I would venture to say she could be a professional comedian.
Well, she is. She's
She's
an
so funny.
imposter speaker. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So
Jenny.
again, where were you born and raised?
Far Rockaway, Queens, New York, a
Okay.
little peninsula outside of the city, a beach community in those days
Yeah.
in 1941, just at the start of World War II.
Wow. Wow. So what is that where you were raised? Were you raised in Queens?
Yes,
Okay.
until I got married, and then we moved to Long Island, to Rockville Center, and
Okay.
eventually in 1969 moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, where I have been ever since, and so grateful to be in this beautiful land of sunshine and great weather.
It is definitely all of that. So growing up, were you did you go to college? Did you like
No, not at all. Well,
okay.
as you're listening, think about what were you like in high school? If you compare your life now to what you were like in high school, is there a similarity? So let me ask you, Ken, are you somewhat like you were in high school, or have you changed dramatically?
I would be dead if I was like I was in high school.
Okay. So have
So
you made improvements in your life since then?
yeah.
How about your
Yes.
personality? Was
Yeah.
it similar? You're
Yeah.
joyful, outgoing,
Yep.
friendly?
Yep. Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
you were in high school.
I was, yeah. Yeah.
Well, my
Yeah.
story is completely different because I wasn't any of those things.
Wow.
I was shy, self-conscious, and my biggest challenge was my inability to talk to people.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I couldn't even lead my Sunday school class in silent prayer. I mean, that's pretty bad.
That's bad.
And in 4 years of high school, never gave an oral report where I had to stand up in front of my classmates and read a book report or give a talk about anything. And I
Yeah.
was just so afraid and so scared to stand up in front of a group. And imagine if somebody had just put their arm around me and said, Joel, you'll be a speaker, a professional speaker. Matter of fact, you'll be in the Speakers Hall of Fame. You'll have been paid to speak well over 3,000 times around the world. I mean, can you imagine a kid in high school hearing that when he can't even stand up in front of his classmates of 30 people
Yeah.
and read a book report? It'd be impossible. So, whatever things you've been told about yourself as you're listening, you can change that because remember, your life is your choice.
Yeah.
And at that point, I didn't know any better. So I didn't make a lot of the good choices. So in growing up, Ken, unlike you, shy, self conscious, very afraid of being in groups and not many friends, living
Same. I was
in
like that.
a, okay. So
I
then
was like that.
you know what that's like.
But I was very friendly with everybody was my point. But I can totally relate to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where you start as you're listening, it's where you're going to end up.
Right.
And you're going to end up based on the choices that you make. So that was my early days. No confidence, shy, reclusive, no friends, not active. I had 3 coaches ask me to try out for their teams, but never went for tryouts because I knew I couldn't make the team. I wasn't that good.
Yeah.
So I didn't even try to do anything and
Wow.
graduated in the quarter of the class that made the top 3 quarters possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I get that. Well, you're doing better than me because I didn't even graduate. I walked out in 12th grade. So
Oh, okay. Well, I did manage
yeah.
to get out, but that's as
Yeah.
far as it
Yeah.
went, other than taking a construction course for 2
Yeah.
years to become a carpenter.
So
And then
when you got out of high school, you immediately started speaking, became an instant success overnight, and the rest is history, right?
oh, absolutely, yes, and then the Tooth Fairy gave me a couple of $100,000,000
Right?
and a magnificent yacht
Yeah.
and, put my face on a stamp for the
Right.
United States. All of that happened right away just in graduate. And
Right.
of course, none of that happens.
Right.
People aren't instant successes.
Right.
And that wonderful book about the 10,000 hours, that's so true. It takes a lot of time and effort to become amazing at
Yeah.
anything, but you
Yeah.
can, because it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you're going to end up. And
Right.
you're going to end up based on the choices you make starting right now, starting today.
Yeah. I agree. So where did you, when you graduated high school, what was your journey? Where did you go from there?
Well, I went to a tech school to learn building construction because
Okay.
the only thing I found I was good at was working with my hands and building things. But I certainly wasn't good with dealing with people. So I went to a 2-year construction course and then went into the construction trades and worked as a carpenter from the
Yeah.
time I was 18 till I was 26. And then the first domino fell. And as you look back at your life, no matter how old you are now, there are a series of dominoes in your life. And Ken, I know you've probably seen those videos where college kids put tens of thousands of dominoes standing on edge
Yeah.
in all kinds of intricate circuits and devices, and then they push the first one, and then they suddenly all start to fall in
Yeah.
line. So that's called the domino effect, where
Yeah.
you do one thing and it triggers a whole other set of experiences in your life. And maybe that was a teacher said to you as you're listening, you could be great at writing. And that sparked a writing bug with you. And maybe now you're a published author just because of that history teacher's first domino in your life. Or maybe it was an athletic domino. A coach told that you'd be great at something and you got good at a sport and then you got a scholarship to college and maybe even played in the professional sports area, all because of that first domino. So in my case, that first domino was a fellow in our church that came up to me one Sunday, put his arm around me, much taller than me, very outgoing and successful. I knew he was a salesman, Ken, because in those days he had a station wagon and it was always filled with stuff.
Yeah.
So I knew he sold something, but I didn't know what he did. And he put his arm around me and he said, Joel, you're the kind of guy I'm looking for. Why don't you come and work for me? And I said, well, what do you do? He said, we sell World Book Encyclopedia to parents and we pay a commission. What do you think of that? Now, Ken, this is 1967. I had never heard the word commission before. I was a carpenter. What did I know about selling?
Right.
And I said, well, what is a commission? He said, that means we pay you what you're worth. Well, right away, I didn't like that job because I didn't think I was worth anything.
Mm.
But he was such a good salesman. And all those, if you've interviewed over 550 people, you've met people who have great selling skills.
Yep.
Well, I didn't know anything about selling. So when he told me that, it didn't sound very good, but he was a great salesman. And he painted this picture of what it would be like if I could go out and learn how to sell and get paid commissions. So
Yep.
he got me to quit my job and become a World Book Encyclopedia door-to-door salesperson in New York, on Long Island, knocking on doors. And he had an extensive training program for a day and a half, which taught me
Yeah.
everything about people skills,
Right.
selling skills, and the product. So imagine as you're listening, you have no selling experience. You're thrown out there with a little sales kit and you're told to go knock on doors. And then they tell you that the law of averages will work in your favor. The more
Yeah.
people you see, the more sales you'll make. Ken, you've heard that, right? You know that's true.
1000%. Yes.
Well, I set a company record the first 4 months. I made 1,200 sales calls and only one sale.
Right.
So my manager said after he heard about this one sale, he said, "You're the worst salesman I've ever hired in 22 years.
Right.
You made 1,200 sales calls for 4 months and one sale? I could send a dog out with an order pad on its tail and they could come back with more than one sale.
Right. Right.
You are the worst salesman I've ever seen." And you'll never, ever make it dealing with people because you have the worst attitude of anybody I've ever met. Now, can you imagine if somebody said that to you? Well,
I,
I
I
felt,
I may have had somebody say that to me.
well, this wonderful man added one word and it became the second domino. He said, you'll never make it dealing with people unless, and that's the word that changed everything, unless you learn how to think differently about yourself. And I said, well, how do you do that? He said, I'm not sure, but maybe this record. And then Ken, he slid away from his desk, opened his desk drawer, and handed me a record called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale.
Yeah,
And I know you know the name Earl Nightingale and The
1000%.
Strangest Secret. But as you're listening, you might be young and you've never heard of Earl Nightingale. Now, if you're older, you probably have, but Earl Nightingale was originally a radio broadcaster in the 40s and 50s.
Yep.
And then he started to create a message about success. And he called it The Strangest Secret. And the basic theme of that Strangest Secret message was that you become what you think about. Now, this was in 1956 that he recorded it. There were
Yep.
no books on success, there were no motivational speakers. This was a
Right.
whole untapped area. And you can remember that, Ken, in the very beginning. And yet it became the largest selling recording of a spoken word message in history and
Yep.
still is today.
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, Earl's wife, Diana, is a good friend. We just talked last week. She's here in Scottsdale, and she has some of Earl's material that wasn't even published yet that's available through her,
Wow.
carrying on his message. So, anyway, when you think about your life, that your life is your choice, he then handed me this record and said, I want you and Judy, who was my wife, to listen to it. So just imagine you've been 4 months knocking on doors, getting total rejection. You make only one sale, which is a total of $48 commission in 4 months. Your wife is
Wow.
pregnant with your first daughter. You
Wow.
have no money in the bank. You're driving an old beat up Volkswagen, and the guy hands you a record as the key to success. And I said, I don't dance. He said, well, it's not a musical record, it's a talking record. Listen to
Right.
it. Can you remember the first time you heard The Strangest Secret, Ken?
It was a long, long time
Long
ago
time ago.
in
Well,
my early 20s.
okay, well, that was pretty much the same for me
Yeah.
because it was in 1967
Wow.
and I was 28 years of age at that point. And
And I wasn't born yet.
so I was, yeah, I was 26 years old. Yes,
Yeah.
1941.
Wow.
And I can still
Wow.
remember when I just told you that, and as you're listening, the feeling of hearing those words for the first time. And for a whole week, Judy and I listened to that record, made notes, and then I said to her, I'm going to learn how to sell these books, and then I'm going to go get a real job, but I'm not going to fail. So imagine you're in the same territory, you have the same product at the same price,
Yep.
but you have a different attitude. You have
Yes.
an attitude of thinking about what you can do, not
Yep.
what you can't do. And what that taught me was I was raised by a single mom. My dad left when I was born and never met him, and we were poor. But if somebody had knocked on her door when I was in elementary school and showed her this World Book encyclopedia, she would have figured out a way to get $10 down and $10 a month and buy those books for me. And maybe that would have made a difference in my education, getting me interested in learning. But
Yeah.
it never happened in school. But I knew the books could. So that was what I thought of, that maybe if I knocked on this door, the kids behind that door and the mother that raised them would be able to get these books and make these kids love learning even more. So with that change in attitude, same territory, same price, same product,
Yeah.
I knocked on 4 doors before noon, made 2 presentations and 2 sales. I doubled 4 months of effort in 4 hours.
Yep.
by doing only one thing: changing my mindset. We
Yep.
talked about attitude in those days. Today, we talk about mindset. So, as you're listening, what is your mindset? Are you thinking about what you can do or thinking about what you can't do?
Right.
So, with that one change, suddenly I doubled 4 months in 4 hours. And I had this old beat up Volkswagen with a crack in the rearview mirror. And I turned the mirror down. I looked at myself and I said, I did it. I did it. And then I thought, what did I do? Same territory, same product, same
Yeah.
price, different way of thinking. Now, as you're listening to this story, what would happen if you change your thinking about the challenge you now face? Because my challenge was I couldn't sell anything.
Yeah.
Now I realized if I was to think that way every day, what would happen? By the end of that first year, Ken, including the first 4 months of virtually no production, I became the number one salesperson for Mr. Vernon Cavill, who was my boss in Hempstead, Long Island, New York, out of 1,100 people that worked for him. From last place to first place, the dominoes were falling so quickly, unstoppable, not because I knew how to sell, but I knew how to have a mindset of how this product could help the kids in that home. So if
Yep.
you're in sales, are you thinking about the dollars or are you thinking about the benefits of what you offer and how that can help other people? So that's the story of the domino to that point, that our life is our choice. And that day, looking at myself in that rearview mirror, I decided to think that way every day. And I carried that Strangest Secret when it came on a cassette player in my car every day. I listened to it. Same
Yep.
message,
Over.
thousands of times.
Yeah. Yeah. I can remember similarly, I was working at an auto plant, Honda, and oh my gosh, there's Jim Packard. You know that guy?
Oh, I know Jim Packard
I
well.
love Jim. What
Jim is a wonderful man, and
and
his
he's
voice.
calling you the we are all listening to the master of sales, and Jim is a master of sales.
Oh,
So
yes, he is.
it's quite a compliment. But I remember, when I had Brian Tracy on the show, he saved my life because I got into sales too at a very young 22-year-old and had no idea. Similar, very similar. Went out, I was convinced I was going to be a millionaire in the first month, and oh my God, it was terrible. So somebody said, "Hey, you need to listen to this cassette tape," and I did, and then Zig and Earl, and it all changed my life. So I love that story. That's phenomenal. That is a phenomenal story. So you went from last place to first place in the company. Did you stay with that company for a while?
Yes, then they made me a manager, which
Okay.
I knew nothing about managing people, but all I did was mostly school teachers sold World Book because they used it in the classroom and they always needed extra income. So they would work at nights, weekends, and then over the summer. And they made me a manager over some of these school teachers. And I didn't know anything about training people. So I ordered more Strangest Secret records. And I would say,
Wow.
listen to this record. And it was amazing how well they started to do. And then things were moving so fast in New York. I was just going up that ladder of success, winning all kinds of awards. And I
Wow.
got a little scared and thought, well, maybe this is going too fast. And I had just gotten my first new car. A snowstorm hit New York. And I said to Judy, I said, let's go to Florida. She said, Florida, why do you want to go to Florida? I said, it's warm. There's no snow. I'm going to ruin this new car. We finally got a new car. Let's go to Florida and warm up. She said, well, if you want warm, why don't we go to Arizona? I said, Arizona? It's a desert. There's nothing there. She
Right.
said, well, let's look it up in World Book. So we sat
Oh
down,
my
pulled out the
gosh.
World Book Encyclopedia, looked up Arizona, looked at each other after we read the whole article, and we both said, if it's that good, maybe we should live there. I said, really? Now, all our families were in the East. We
Hold it.
grew
Had
up
you
there.
visited? Had you?
No, we'd never been there.
Oh my
And I
God.
said, well, how would she said, didn't Don Raymond move there? And somebody we knew in New York. And she said,
Wow.
yes, he did. So why don't you call him? So I found out his number. I called him and he said, well, why don't you come out and stay with me? So the next day I got an airline ticket, flew out to Phoenix, Arizona. He picked me up at the airport. I was there for a couple of days. By the second day, I called Judy. I said, sell the house. This is it. And
Wow.
it was just so magnificent. People were so friendly. Everything
Yeah.
was new. And
Yeah.
in 9 days, the house was sold. We packed up our little daughter, Jill, a dog, a tent trailer we bought, camped across the country. And the first time she saw Arizona was the day we moved from New York to the West
Oh my
and never looked back.
That is so cool.
And
What
that
a
was
great
another domino. But
yeah.
that leads to the sign above me here, speaking to grow your business, because I didn't know how to speak. Even though I was managing these people, I couldn't run a meeting because you had to get up in front of people. But
Yeah.
when I moved to Arizona with World Book and started all over again, I had to do a meeting right near Arizona State University at a Holiday Inn. It was in the evening for school teachers. 17 people showed up. So, Ken, just picture this. You've learned how to sell. You're doing well. They make you a manager. You don't know anything about managing. You
Right.
don't know anything about running a meeting. And you're in front of this group and you stumble along for an hour. And then the meeting ended. Everybody left. I'm packing up my couple of notes and things. And one of the teachers that was in the room came back and introduced himself as a principal. And he said, you know, I know a little bit about speaking. Can I give you some feedback on what you just did at this first meeting in Arizona? Now, what would you have said, Ken, if somebody said that to you?
I would have said, "Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
that's what I said.
yeah, yeah."
So as you're listening, what would you have said? Are you open to feedback? So this man put his arm around me and he said, Joel, you are the worst speaker I have ever heard in my whole life. And this was by far the worst meeting I have ever been to. And I started to cry. This was 1969. I was 28 years old, a father, married, and I'm crying. He yells at me. He says, stop crying. You're not a baby. I'm going to fix you. I'm going to fix you, he said. I said,
Oh
well,
my
what do you
god.
mean? He said, I'm going to teach you how to speak. Tuesday morning, 6:30, Brad's Coffee Shop, Rural Road in Tempe. Be there for breakfast. I said, what are we going to do at breakfast? Well, there's going to be a bunch of guys there. It's called a Toastmasters Club. Do you know what Toastmasters is? I said, no, I know what a toaster is. No, it has nothing to do with toasting. It's a club to help you speak better.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get you in that club and you're going to learn how to speak. Now, if somebody said that to you, what would you do? You just failed miserably. You don't know what you're doing. Would you have gone, Ken, if that was you?
Probably.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what I did. Remember, your life is your choice.
Yeah.
So there was another choice.
Yeah.
Do I just realize I can't speak? I'm no good. This is the worst meeting this guy's ever been to. He was much older than I was. I don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing here? But
Yeah.
I went to Toastmasters and I realized that day that this club could help me.
Yeah.
And I never missed a meeting for 5 years. And more dominoes started to fall. And I learned the most important premise for you as you're listening, that your ability to communicate and speak is a learned skill.
Yep.
I didn't realize that you can learn how to speak, just like golf or any sport. You're not born knowing how to hit a golf ball. You learn how to hit a golf ball. And if you're into golf, the more time you spend hitting golf balls, the more lessons you take, the more feedback you get by a coach, the better you're going to get.
Yeah.
Same thing on typing on your keyboard that you might have right in front of you now. You didn't know how to type when you first saw a keyboard. You learned
Yep.
how.
Yep.
And speaking is a learned skill.
Yep.
So I started to learn that there were certain things that you could do and then practicing them. Ken, have you ever been in Toastmasters?
I've not.
Okay. So that was 1969.
Yeah.
And I can remember it so clearly because it was September 9th, 1969, that I walked into the Tempe, Arizona Toastmasters Club. And today, being Tuesday, yesterday at noon, I walked into the Chats Toastmasters Club in Scottsdale.
Wow.
Now, 55 years, 54,
Four. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
right,
55.
55 years later.
54. Yeah.
55 years later, I'm still a member. And Jenny, my daughter, is a member with me, and we've got a
Yeah.
wonderful club because you can still keep learning. And people
Yeah.
say, you're a speaker, you're a professional. You don't go to Toastmasters. Well, yes, you do. If you want to keep getting better, you got to keep sharpening your saw. You've
Yep.
got to get feedback and you've got to help other people. So
Yep.
that's the experience that tips some more dominoes. So if you're listening and you want to get even better as a speaker, one thing to do, join a Toastmasters club. We have over 100 of them in Arizona. So whatever state you live in, I think there's 16,000 clubs just in the
Yeah.
United States. There's a lot of clubs, maybe 160,000. I'm not sure. But you just go on the Toastmasters website and you'll get a chance to practice. You probably speak only 3 times a year if you
Yeah.
have a big club. So it's not going to be the ultimate way to learn, but it's one way to get even better. But that's part of that story, that you make decisions based on opportunities you get. So if
Yeah.
you look back to your life, have you taken advantage of the opportunities, the dominoes in front of you, and start tipping them over? So
I
that
I think that I look at Grant Cardone is a friend of mine and a mentor of mine, and I'll never forget in 2014 when he asked me what I was hiding from. I'm like, nothing, man. What are you talking about? And so, I think about, I've done over 4,000 live streams since 2014. And I teach it. I teach people how to engage with an audience on a live stream, and how to, the technical abilities and all of that. And I think, I'd love to hear your feedback on this, but most people, and I mean most people, 98, 99% of the people that'll hear this message will never do a live stream. They'll never show up at a Toastmasters. They may secretly want to be a speaker. They may secretly want to get their message out, but they won't take the action.
Well, that's a choice. Remember the premise of our discussion, that your life is your choice. And as you're listening, one of Ken's followers, to all of these amazing people that he brings you, they're not unique. I'm certainly not unique.
Right.
I could have ended up being a carpenter for the rest of my life had I not taken advantage of that opportunity to sell World Book, had not
Yeah.
failed miserably at that and been given the strangest secret, had not discovered that my thinking, my attitude of thinking of whether you can or you can't do something was the key, and then proving it. Your life is the same way. Everything good in your life has come to you because you made a choice. You made the right choice. And everything bad in your life has probably come to you because you made the wrong choice.
Right.
Well, isn't it wonderful? You can choose from this day forward. You can choose. Your life is not fixed. It's not over. You can keep improving. And at 82, I'm just learning so many new things, AI and all of the wonderful things that can bring us, and working full time, never planning to retire. Because Earl Nightingale taught me one valuable lesson. And I'll tell you later how we became good friends. But he taught me on a fishing trip I took him on in Arizona. And he said, Joel, remember this: work is what you're doing when you'd rather be doing something else. And as you're listening right now, if you love what you're doing, you're not working. You love it so much. However, if what you're doing isn't what you love and you're working, maybe you need to find something that you love. And when you do, you never want to stop doing it.
Mm,
And that's
wow.
where I am. Never planning to stop coaching people now, which is mainly what I do, on how to make even better presentations, because it's not a performance. So many times people think speaking is a performance. It's being you. It's being congruent. The worst thing you could do is try to act when you're speaking. How to use your hands. Nobody talks like that. We talk like this, just like Ken. I mean, Ken and I were talking before this went live. He's exactly the same now that we're live. There was no difference. And if you
There's-
and I were out on my houseboat up at Lake Powell going water skiing for today,
yeah.
we'd be exactly the same as we are right
Well,
now.
I say we test that theory. I'm on the way.
Good. All right, let's go.
I'm kidding. I love Lake Powell. It's beautiful.
Well,
So when you, I want to back up. I'm trying to get back into the chronological order of things. So when you moved to Arizona, you did your meeting that you were terrible at. You started going to Toastmasters because of a high school principal, right?
yep.
And
Yeah, he told me that on September 4th, 1969. And then
wow,
on September 9th, 5 days later, that we had that Toastmasters meeting.
wow, wow.
And that
So
was, yes.
so that's where you're speaking. And this was a management position, right? That you were
Yes. But I was not qualified for it. I just knew
right,
how to sell,
right.
but I didn't know how to teach other people. But I learned how to communicate even better. But the speaking really developed 5 years later in
Okay.
1974 when Toastmasters, and if you're listening and you've been in Toastmasters, every year they have speech contests.
Yeah.
And Judy encouraged me to enter one. And I said, well, you know, I don't think I'm good enough to enter a speech contest. She said, you've gotten really good. You could win your club level. So I did what she told me because when you married 59 years is what we
Wow.
were. Unfortunately, I lost her about a year and a half ago, but
Oh,
we
I'm
had
so
a great run approaching 60 years together. Can't
wow.
ask for more than that. But
Wow.
she was such an encouraging part of my life. Entering that speech contest was her idea, and I won. And I ended up at the World Finals in 1974 out of 60,000 Toastmasters that year and placed in the top three. And it was written up in the Arizona Republic, our local Phoenix big paper, right
Yeah.
on the front page. Young man places top three in the world at Toastmasters International Speech Contest.
Wow.
And the next day, the phone rings, and a man named Paul Cronin, I can still see his face, called me up. He said, I just read the paper. I hear you're a speaker. We have a meeting coming up. Would you come and be our guest speaker? I said, well, sure. What's the time and the place? He told me that. And then he said, now we've got to talk about money. I said, okay. He said, how does $25 sound? Now, this was 1974. I said,
Right.
well, that sounds fine. Who do I send the check to? And he says, Joel, no, 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 no. You get $25. I said, I get $25 to speak? He said, yeah, you're going to be a
Oh man.
speaker. Well, and you get a chicken dinner. And Ken, that was my first professional talk. And by the end of that year in 1974, I gave 274 presentations of
Wow.
that Toastmasters talk for $25 and was so busy doing speeches, I didn't have time to do World Book and ended up turning it into a career that has lasted now. This is the 50th year
Wow.
with no advertising, no
Wow.
marketing, no sales agents, no speakers bureaus, no
Wow.
demo reel, no sales sheet, nothing. Only doing one thing. Because remember the theme, your life is your choice.
Yep.
And one of the things that I learned from Earl Nightingale was find out what everybody else is doing and don't do it.
Right.
Don't compete, create. So I developed custom programs for my audiences that was so unique, so different than what they had ever seen before, that two things happened almost every time I spoke. They'd hire me again for a different part of their company, or they'd refer me to somebody else to speak. And that has lasted 50 years. No
Wow.
advertising, no marketing, no demo videos, nothing.
So did first off, I'm assuming you're the reason that you coined the phrase winner winner chicken dinner, right? 'Cause
No, I had nothing to do with that. Never heard of that. I've heard of it, but
yeah. I
not
mean,
mine.
you got 25 bucks in a
I got
chicken dinner,
25 in
you
the
had to be
chicken dinner,
walking out of there thinking,
and the dominoes fell, and the
yeah,
career accelerated.
so awesome.
And remember the breakthroughs. You're here because you want a breakthrough in your life. That you need to take advantage of the things that you see with the attitude that you can do it. That
Yeah,
success comes in cans, not in cannots. And it's so important that you have that mindset about everything you do because your life is your choice.
yeah,
And you're the only one that can make those choices. No one else can. That's why I said in the beginning, you're not interested in my story. You don't care anything about me. All you want to know is, does this guy know something that can help me? And
yep,
that's what can help you. That your life is your choice. If you have the right mindset, that you can do things. And if it's the right thing, it's going to work out. And if it's not, it's also going to be the right thing because something better is coming your way.
wow. That's a powerful statement. What would you say to somebody that maybe is considering, I would like to be a paid speaker. I'd like to that is really a great speaker already, but they would like to be a paid speaker. What are the steps? What would you say to that person?
Well, that's a great question. So maybe as you somebody listening to you and you've got a large audience, if that's you, here's the most important thing you need to think of. What do you know that somebody would be willing to pay to hear? Because so many times I hear speakers say, I just love getting up in front of an audience. It just makes me feel so fulfilled. And I just love sharing my wisdom with others. No one cares. It's not about you. And that's what I learned early in my speaking career. It's not about you. Earl Nightingale, I've listened to everything Earl ever recorded. And in 1987, he came on my first houseboat as my first guest to Lake Powell. And for the next 3 years, he sold his homes from different parts of the United States, moved to Scottsdale, and we became friends, and he became my mentor. And it was there that in those 3 years, Earl taught me so many important things. And it's don't compete, create. And it's separating yourself from everybody else that makes such a great difference. So if you want to be a speaker, what do you know that can benefit others? And in all of those years of listening to Earl's material, there was nothing about Earl Nightingale. He never even talked about himself. He never told his personal story. The only thing I knew about him is he loved boats. That's why I invited him on that
Wow.
houseboat trip. But that's all I knew.
Right.
He didn't talk about himself. He talked about the audience. And that's why I've been talking to you. It's not about Joel Weldon. It's about you, the listener. How do you break through the walls that are binding you in? How do you separate yourself from everybody else? Well, you've heard a few things. Find out what everybody else is doing and don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't compete, create.
Yeah.
Take advantage of the opportunities you have with that right mindset. Listen to things like The Strangest Secret to reinforce the fact that your life is your choice.
Yeah.
And that's why, and I don't say this in a bragging way, I have such a wonderful life. I've got amazing children and grandchildren. We've been free of trauma and drama in our family. We've made the right choices for the right reason. I live in the same home in Scottsdale for 53 years. After
Wow.
7 additions, we made it to what it is now, just perfect for what our life is. And the same thing can be for you. One marriage, one career, one home. Why? Because our life is our choice. And you can make things better and better. You don't need to change them, you need to improve them. If what you have is good, make it even better.
Mm, so good. When I had Brian Tracy on, I said, because he kept, he's always about write it down, write it down, write it down. And so I said, and I'm going to say the same thing to you. Um, People listening and watching us right now, they're going to hear this stuff and they know that you're right. They know that, you're giving them sage advice, and um, the majority are not going to make that choice. They're going to keep choosing to stay stuck where they are instead of moving in the direction that you're talking about. How is there a way to convince those people to make different choices? Or because Brian said no, he said no,
Well, I
no.
think there is. I think there
Okay,
is.
good.
So my answer to that would be, if you base everything on one word, the word is results.
Yep.
So as an example, if you're playing golf because you want to be outside and have fun, and you go out and you get frustrated because you're not playing well, and you
Yeah.
throw your clubs and you curse at the ball and you blame your partners and the wind or whatever else, what is the result of that 4.5 hours on the golf course? Frustration, annoyance.
Yep.
Obviously, if you look at the results, golf is not for you. So the same thing with your marriage. If you're married, what kind of results are you getting? Are
Yep.
you living a life where you can't wait to see your spouse when you're apart? Or when you're apart, are you thinking, my God, finally I'm free of them? If that's the case, you're not getting the results. It's time to make a change.
Yeah.
So if you're stuck, if you're saying, Ken, that people won't take advantage of this, the way you do it is look at the results you've gotten. And there's this old expression, if you keep on doing what you've always done, you're going to keep on getting what you've always got.
Somebody
When you,
type that in the comments. There it is. My buddy
oh,
Joaquin.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's from Albert Einstein, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's the case, in 1981, on March 16th, I had an experience on an airplane where a guy changed everything I ate and drank on a flight from Miami to Phoenix. His name was Alvin Casuto. And it made such an impact on me that since that day, March 16th, 1981, I've only drank water. I've never had another sweet, no candy, cookie, ice cream, nothing sweet with sugar that's
Wow.
processed, all because of that. Why? Because when I did what Alvin told me to do, stop eating crap, eat more chicken and fish, fruit and vegetables, I just felt so much better. I saw the results. When you see the results, you don't make a change. And people that know me so well over the years know Joel will never try anything sweet. Well, just try a little bit. No.
Wow.
Why? Because what I'm eating and drinking has made me, at my age, still doing the things I did 40 years ago. I still water ski 90 days a year. We have a private lake, we have a houseboat, ski boat, fishing, bike riding every day with my golden retriever running behind me,
Wow.
hour in the morning and an hour at night. How do you do those things? Because if you keep on doing what you've always done, you're going to keep on getting what you always got. Well, when
Wow.
you love what you got, you keep doing it. And if you look at results, if your life isn't what you want it to be, you're not getting the results you want, then you need to make improvements. And that's when you'll join a Toastmasters club. That's when you'll go to the gym. That's when you'll stop eating crap. That's when you'll make positive improvements and listen to Ken's show every time he's on the air.
Wow. That is
Results. Make
so
that the word.
powerful. So powerful. You're 1000% correct.
And look at what you've done on your show. When you figured out what works, results, you know what Ken does? He keeps doing it.
Yeah.
because of the result.
Yeah.
Now, if nobody was tuning into your show, you had 1 million watches the first time, now you get 3.
Right.
Obviously, the results are not there. What you're doing isn't working.
Right.
But if you start off at 0 and end up with the number of listeners you got now, keep on doing what you've done, and you're
Yeah.
going to keep getting those results.
I think about that because I always feel like it's never too late. If you're still breathing, why not give it a shot if it's something you really want? I look at what you're saying, and I think about the 1,200 sales calls you made, and made one sale and made $40 or whatever.
$48. Yep.
How much?
48.
40, 48. We don't want to forget about that $8. So you made $48 and you made 1,200 sales calls in 4 months. There is a point, and I hear people talk about this that are motivational speakers that say at some point you got to give up. And I agree with that, but I also disagree with that. And because I think that if it's something you really truly believe in, if it's on your heart, it's part of your soul, keep going until you figure it out, just like you did. The results were horrible for what you did, but you stayed with it for 4 months. You kept going. 1,200 sales calls is a lot of sales calls. It's a lot. But you just kept going. I wonder if you could speak on that. Is there a point where you go, dude, you got to give up?
Well, first of all, I wasn't very smart. Number 2, I didn't know anything about selling. I trusted and believed people, which I still do.
Yeah.
And when Vernon told me the law of averages works, the more doors you knock on, the more sales you're going to make. So I kept thinking, boy, I'm up to 900 calls. Well, I'm going to make a lot of sales. Eventually, they're going to all start coming in.
Right.
And so he would constantly talk to me, encourage me to keep going, that I'll learn from experience. And I'll give you my standard approach. So I'm knocking on your door, Ken. The door opens. And the lady, because women were home then
Yep.
in the 60s, he said, "What do you want? What are you selling?" I said, "I'm selling books. You don't want any, do you?" And she said, "No." And they'd close the door. Then I'd knock on the next door. "You don't want to buy any books, do you?" "No." So the one lady, Irene Dunn was her name, in Bayshore, Long Island. I
Wow.
knocked on Irene Dunn's door and I said, "You don't want to buy any books, do you?" She said, "Young man, we love books in this home. What are you selling?" I said, "It's the World Book." "The World Book?" She said, come in, come in. I've wanted to buy it. I didn't know when. I got 5 kids. They go into the library all the time. I'll give you a check. Come in,
Oh
sit
my
down. So I
God.
sit in the kitchen. She runs back with her checkbook, and you'll appreciate this, Ken. And she
Wow.
says, "How much do I make the check for?" And I said, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Can I use your telephone and call the office? So I had to call the office to find out the price for $168.
Oh my
And she
God.
wrote the check to Field Enterprises. And that was the next domino that fell, because that's what got me the strangest secret. And the
That's
strangest secret broke everything loose. And the
that's
same
what
thing
that's what we call in sales a lay down.
Yeah. Yes, a lay down, yes. Well, that's why he was so angry at me, because he said a dog could have gotten that order. She just wanted World Book. You didn't make a presentation. You
Oh my
didn't handle
God.
objections. You didn't close. None of the things I learned later about selling.
That is
So,
so funny. Oh my
so as
God.
you're listening, thinking about, is speaking part of your future? If it
Yeah.
is, I mean, that's what I do. We have a wonderful program my Jenny and I run. We have group coaching, we have individual coaching. And if you're interested, you can just go to if you're really serious about it, go to talktojoel.com, get
Yep.
on my calendar, make a 15-minute appointment, and I'll talk to you.
It's
So,
scrolling across the bottom of the
oh,
screen
look
right
at that.
now. Yeah. I
Talktojoel.com. And
I
of
I
course,
have one final question for you.
sure. You can
that
ask
that
2 questions if you want, because I have
well,
one final close when you finish.
yeah. Jim
22 words.
Packard. I can't. Jim has been on the entire time. Jim, you're awesome, man. So I've been homeless and broke as an adult, and I've been incredibly wealthy as an adult. And I can tell you that incredibly wealthy is better. Um, when 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 it comes to people having it all, and I'm sorry, money is related to happiness. I don't care what anybody says. I I've been in both positions, and I know that being able to pay my bills and eat makes me happier. The people that are struggling in life, they want the money, they want the dream, they want the dream marriage, they want everything. What do you feel is stopping people from, what's holding them back from having it all? The money, the freedom, the joy, everything.
Well, if you think about what money really represents, the only money that we get is something where somebody sees some value
Right?
and is willing to give up their money to get that value. Going into McDonald's and getting a hamburger, the value is, well, I'm going to get something fast and quick to eat, and it's not going to kill me. So I'll give them $10 for whatever I'm going to order. So they get some money for that. But I think other people are thinking, instead of what can they give, they start thinking about what can I get? And if you focused on what you can get, you don't play the game the right way. The game of life, the rewards of money are in direct proportion the service that you give, what you give to others. And there's a way that you can just change your thinking about not what do you want, but what can I give that will
Mm,
give me something in return. I mean, anybody could get a job today if they're willing to work, even
yep.
if it's tight employment. And, I've had somebody was looking for a job and I told them, go to the place that you want to work, tell them what you can do, and then say this: why don't you give me a chance to prove what I could do? Let me work for you for 2 weeks and don't pay me anything. And if at the end of 2 weeks you like what I do, pay me for the 2 weeks and hire me. Or at the end of 2 weeks, if I haven't done what you wanted, just tell me to get out of here. What do you think a boss would think if somebody had that attitude? Because I know I can do what you want to have done.
Yep.
Now, what services do you have? What ability do you have? What
Yep.
skills can you offer or improve so that you do become a value giver? I told you in the very beginning, you don't care anything about me unless it's going to help you.
Yep.
Nobody cares about giving you money unless it's going to help them. So have that mindset. What's in it for them? Joe Polish, the founder of Genius Network, wrote that
Brilliant.
wonderful book. What's in it for them?
Yeah.
That should, and if you do that, you'll have riches beyond your dreams. If you're willing to work and make it about them and not about you.
Wow. I think that is the perfect spot to wrap this up, because that is 1000% the truth. I think if people got that one statement you just made, it could change the trajectory of most people's lives.
Well, remember, your life is your choice. And if you don't like what you got, just start making new choices. And if you like what you got, keep doing what you're doing because you're going to get more of it.
Wow. Joel Weldon, you are a true gem. Thank you
Well,
for,
you are for sharing your wisdom and getting people on and giving this encouragement to them.
this is phenomenal. I honestly, I didn't know what to expect because I'd never met you, and so I'm pleasantly blown away by your wisdom and your heart. It's really amazing. So thank you for being on. today and sharing with everyone. And everybody that has a desire to be a speaker, be a better speaker, go to talk to Joel, JOEL.com, talktojoel.com, in case you're listening on the podcast network, and book an appointment with him. And if you're serious, book an appointment and go talk to him. See if there's an opportunity to work together. So, Joel, I'm going to end the live stream. Thank you again. If you'll stay with me for a second and we can wrap up. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we
Yes,
go?
I'm going to give them 22 words that'll sum up over 50 years of speaking, since you talk about people who maybe want to be speakers.
Yeah.
So here it is. Speak to your audience about what they need in an organized way they can follow and get yourself out of the way.
Wow.
Now make it a great day.
I love that. That's so awesome. So awesome. Joel, thank you. Hang on for me. Everybody watching, make sure you're following Joel everywhere on social media. Go to talktojoel.com, get an appointment with him, talk to him, and take your life to a whole new level. Joel, thank you so much. Hang on. I'll be right back with you. Everybody have a great day, and we will see you later. Thanks, Joel.